Welcome to today's Explainer. Today we are exploring a truly profound metamorphosis. We're going to trace Jet Li's journey. And I don't just mean the story of a martial arts champion or some global movie star. We're looking at his remarkable transformation from a fame-driven actor to a genuinely enlightened philanthropist. We're going to capture the absolute essentials of his book, Beyond Life and Death, in 8 minutes or less. Okay, let's dive into this. The story told in Beyond Life and Death perfectly captures this striking duality. On the outside, Jet Li achieved unimaginable worldly success. We're talking fame, immense wealth, the adoration of literally millions of fans. But on the inside, he was locked in this quiet, intense struggle for true peace. He realized super early on in his career that being an international icon didn't just magically shield him from suffering, and it definitely didn't give him that deep, lasting happiness he was so desperately searching for. And that realization leads us directly to a huge existential question. Who am I when all my roles are stripped away? I actually want to pose this directly to you right now, because this is the exact inquiry that guided Jet Li's entire life. When you completely strip away your job title, your family roles, your societal status, your bank account, what's left? Who is the actual person watching beneath all of those constantly shifting identities? To really understand the weight of that question, let's look at the many identities Jet Li has held. He was born Li Lianji, which is the name under which he became a 5-time national wushu champion. Then the world came to know him as Jet Li, the unstoppable movie star. To millions of fans, he was the guy who could take down an entire room of heavily armed bad guys without breaking a sweat or even messing up his hair. To others, he was Jue Yuan, his incredibly famous Shaolin monk character. And then, later in life, his Buddhist teachers gave him the name Karma Yin Bu, which translates to son of compassion. But here's the thing. Despite his physical invincibility on screen, he realized none of these labels fully captured his true self. They were just temporary roles, which really highlights the complete illusion of conventional success. He ultimately discovered what we can call the grand illusion of success. Despite having literally everything society tells us we should want, he found himself totally hooked. He was being pulled in countless directions by unending fears and desires. He realized his own emotions and worldly attachments had become his boss, and he was just their incredibly stressed-out employee. Because he hadn't yet trained his mind, no amount of external power, money, or fame could actually set him free from his own anxiety. Which brings us to part 1 of his journey, the warrior's evolution, the path to inner peace. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we actually begin to train the mind. Jet Li found that his career in storytelling and film provided a brilliant template for spiritual maturity. He discovered true mastery isn't just about physical combat. It's about bridging the gap between fighting an opponent and achieving inner spiritual growth. So there are 3 distinct stages of a martial artist's evolution. Stage 1, you have a sword in your hand and your heart. You're highly skilled, sure, but you're aggressive and totally capable of causing harm. Stage 2, you drop the physical weapon, but that desire to fight still lingers deeply in your heart. The ultimate goal, however, is the 3rd stage. No sword in hand and no sword in heart. This is a profound evolution from causing harm to cultivating deep connection, actively preventing conflict before it even begins. This realization really peaked for him while he was filming the martial arts epic Fearless. He came to understand a profound truth. Ultimately, our real opponent may be ourselves. Jet Li realized there is no true external enemy. When you fight someone, whether that's in a ring, a corporate boardroom, or just a heated argument, you're often just fighting your own shadow, projected by your own unexamined hatred and fear. It is our own untrained mind that creates this persistent illusion of separation from the rest of the world. Part 2, the tsunami's awakening, a terrifying brush with death. So the crucial point is that while he was grasping these philosophical concepts intellectually, a terrifying real-world event forced him to truly live them. During the devastating 2004 Maldives tsunami, a massive wall of water abruptly crashed into his hotel. As he and his family were suddenly submerged and nearly swept away, literally fighting for their lives in the churning water, he faced the very real, immediate prospect of losing absolutely everything. In that chaotic moment, a huge realization hit him. The ocean simply didn't care if he was a famous movie star, a millionaire, or a world-class martial arts champion. Nature's brutal, unpredictable power revealed the incredibly fragile, impermanent nature of his ego. That tsunami completely washed away the illusion of his own worldly importance. Moving into part 3, small self versus big self, expanding the mind. Surviving that horrific night changed him forever. It fundamentally shifted his worldview and triggered the core philosophical awakening of his entire life, leading to this really profound understanding of the self. And this brilliantly illustrates that concept. Imagine the small self as a small bowl of water. If you drop just a tiny pinch of dirt into it, the whole bowl instantly becomes murky and ruined, right? That is exactly what happens when our ego is fragile. One minor insult, one bad email, or a tiny setback completely ruins our entire day. But the big self is like a massive swimming pool. You can throw buckets of dirt in and the sheer volume of water just absorbs it. The water remains perfectly fine to swim in. An expansive, thoroughly trained mind handles life's inevitable dirt and chaos without losing its fundamental inner peace. To actively cultivate that big self, Jet Li completely shifted his life's focus. He established the One Foundation, intentionally stepping out from the center of the glittering spotlight and moving into the background. In Chinese culture, there's a phrase about acting like a grandson, which basically means to intentionally humble yourself, to lower your status in service to others. Well, Jet Li embraced this, quite literally. He effectively became a beggar for charity, purposefully weakening his own massive ego and pouring all his energy into serving the needs of millions. He did this to expand his own pool of water, so to speak. Let's move to part 4 and see how this builds to ultimate freedom, the concept of Zizai. Everything we've discussed so far, the martial arts stages, surviving that terrifying tsunami, stepping back into quiet philanthropy, it all builds to this ultimate goal. We usually think of conventional freedom like the wind. The wind blows wherever it wants, forcing the landscape to bend and change to suit its desires, seemingly totally unrestricted. But Jet Li argues that true freedom, or Zizai, is actually the freedom of a cloud. A cloud isn't violently driven by fear or desire. It is perfectly content taking any shape, effortlessly floating anywhere in the sky, passing through transformations without any friction whatsoever. Zizai is not the exhausting ability to do anything you want. It is the absolute peaceful liberation from the need to control anything at all. He frames this realization using a beautifully vivid Buddhist metaphor. Society teaches us from a young age that we need to be hard, solid, and entirely separate from one another. We spend our whole lives trying to be strong, invulnerable blocks of ice, continuously building massive ice castles to protect ourselves from getting hurt. But the fundamental truth is that we are all actually water. True peace and true freedom is ultimately found in melting that rigid, isolated ego back into the interconnected, continually flowing stream of life. As we reach the end of this explainer, I want to turn Jet Li's profound question back onto you. What does true freedom look and feel like for you? Take a moment to just reflect on that. What ice castles have you built in your own life? What worldly pursuits, job titles, or even old grudges are you desperately clinging to that might actually be keeping you trapped in that tiny, fragile bowl of water? The ultimate takeaway from Jet Li's incredible journey, from a fame-driven warrior to a man of profound compassion, is beautifully simple. Melt the ice. Let go of the rigid attachments to who you think you are. When you stop letting your fears and desires control you, you finally become your own boss. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to In 8 Minutes and never miss what matters.